What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Art Shack. So last video I showed you how to darken in the clouds a little bit, give it a little bit more mood, and I also went into the background trees and give them a bit more definition. This video we're going to keep on moving forward in the landscape, and the next group of things to tackle are these background trees. So up till now I've only had a slight sketch of them mostly. This is going to be a spring picture, so I'm going to be drawing a lot of leaves on these trees. So this part might get a little time consuming, but give it time and patience and it'll come out just fine. So for this, I'm going to draw the leaves in relatively dark. I want them to stand out quite a bit, especially against the sky. So I'm going to be using a 2B pencil. This is just a clutch pencil. You can, of course, go back in and use regular pencil. This is the Faber-Castell pencils. These clutch pencils have Faber-Castell graphite within them, so I'm pretty much using the same thing. It's just another method of using the pencils, or another catalyst form, I guess you could say. But anyway, let's get back to the drawing at hand. So for drawing in the leaves, I have a couple of videos on different ways you can do it. A lot of people have their own techniques, but for me, it generally follows that with the pencil, I'll grip the top of it with my thumb and index finger, and then grip the rest of it with my pinky underneath. So this is like the underhand grip. It's for control work, but for a lot of graphite exposure on the page. So it's going to make a lot of expressive lines, I guess you could say. So for this, let me zoom in really close to one of these trees. Hopefully it stays in focus. I think we're okay. Alright, so now we're really in there. Alright, so let's start off with some of these branches. So I have some branches that are really far in and over here. So you don't have to worry too much about the branches so much. You can always re-add them in a little bit later. So it's not really too big of a deal right now. So let's just get started with this. Now the way I like to kind of do this is keep my pencil moving horizontally, but it also depends on the direction of the branches. But you could just kind of get an idea for what I'm doing here. Now it's not too much of making precise movements, it's just about kind of getting a flow going. See, when I draw these leaves, you can sit there and draw every single leaf if you like. You know, go for it. Your drawing will probably end up looking amazing. But for me, that's way too time consuming, and I like to find shortcuts with my drawings. So this is the way I tend to draw my leaves. It's it tends to look pretty good in most cases. Especially with these trees. I mean, they're going to be pretty small, so, well, small on the page, relatively speaking. So don't have to worry too much about adding so much detail to them, because remember, objects in the background don't tend to have as many details that you would see as compared to an object that is, 4 feet in front of you. So if you had a tree that was really close, you'd be able to see a lot of really details, but really far away, you typically only going to see like one shade of detail or color or whatever you are looking at. So it's a lot of it's about observation and just practice. A lot of the comments on videos recently is, how do I get started? Where do I even look to begin? And usually it has to do with your interests. If you have an interest in drawing portraits or in landscapes, still life, manga, whatever it happens to be, you want to draw what you're interested in, because that's going to keep you constantly motivated to look and find new ways of doing something. So for me, it's always been landscapes, but I didn't start out with, well, actually, I kind of did. I was going to say I didn't really start out with drawing full-on landscape pieces like this. I did, and a lot of them didn't really come out that great, but I know I tried, so it's all about the practice. But for those of you that are looking to really get into different sorts of things, take it step by step. Start small and work your way up. So for me, I spent a long time just drawing trees in my sketchbooks, just to kind of understand the dynamics and and how they are, basically how they work, how they look, and different ways of portraying them in different styles and things like that. I drew quite a bit of rocks. I drew a lot of mountains in my sketchbook. Quite a few mountains. So you just want to practice individual elements. That's what I usually do. And that helps me a lot to build up that confidence to attempt a drawing like this. But this drawing that I'm doing here, I've did a little bit differently than my Mountains in the Mist. My Mountains in the Mist was very, very structured and very detail oriented, I guess you can kind of say. That was because I've already done that drawing before, and I had an idea of how to go and where to go about it, and what things to do and what things not to do. This picture haven't drawn before. This is my first time drawing this. Actually, I'm kind of lying. I did a sketch of it. It's in my backpack, so I can't it's all the way out in the car, so I have a very, very light sketch that gave me I'll tell you what, the sketch only went up to the part where I had the guidelines and the basic placement of all the objects. That's how far that sketch went, and that's what got me started on doing this. I wanted to try a grid method and see how the accuracy would be, if it would increase or not, and it has. I was pretty surprised with how using a grid really helped. So there's all different methods. There's a lot of different methods that I've never even tried. I'm always learning new ways of just attempting something. So it's just trying to keep yourself motivated, which I know can be pretty difficult sometimes. Especially, I know a lot of you are probably still in school or are working full-time jobs. That's typically what is going on in the average life. Which, it's the way things go. So finding the time to sit down and unwind and do something that requires quite a bit of concentration and a lot of study, that's sometimes hard to devote so much time to. But that brings me back to trying to draw something of interest, keeping topics that are interesting to you. That way, you can constantly keep devoting time to it, because you keep to yourself interested. So, because landscapes for me, it's just one of those things that I tried and I've always liked it. So that's just what I've stuck to. That's what I've devoted many, many hours to learning and perfecting styles and techniques so that I could show all of you what I know. That's basically what this channel is all about. So I can just share my knowledge with everyone that that doesn't have the art classes or college courses nearby. I know those are very, very pricey sometimes, and you don't always get what you want. I've been looking around different classes locally to help with basic landscape design and things like that, but there's not too much around me. Even my local community college doesn't have much of anything. It's all basic fundamentals, which I guess would help. But I'm more interested in taking a class which I'd have more interest in. But that's just me. So, alright, so while I was rambling on for a good amount of time there, I've gotten quite a bit done in this tree. So let's get back to the topic at hand. So keeping a sharp pencil really helps a lot with this. So having a nice long tip on your pencil is what's really helpful. So now I'm going to try and go back in and fix in some of these details. Did I mention I was using a 2B pencil? I probably did, but I'll mention it again anyway. So that's what I'm using. I'm using that mainly because I want the tree to stand out pretty nicely against the background. I also varied the pressure quite a bit within this. I want to try and create volume and depth. So some areas where I'd imagine there'd be a lot more leaves, I'll put in a thicker application down, and then I'll usually have an immediate highlight spot so I can take an eraser and just kind of pick out some place where there'd be some sun shining. Usually on the tops of the trees I won't press too hard because I know that there's going to be some sort of light interacting with it. Alright, so this is actually two trees. It's like one in front of the other, which can get a little bit complicated. So this tree here is in front, and there's a branch that comes up like that. You can see there's some more branches in the works over here. So for this tree trunk, I'm not going to spend too much time detailing it. Something like that is about where I want to be with it. And I'll continue the tree trunk going up. So just like that. Now there's a stray line right here that's making this look like a really thick tree branch, which it isn't. Just gotta be careful with those stray lines. Sometimes they do something that you really don't want to happen. So you just want to be really careful with those. Now typically my drawing style is kind of loose. I used to be very uptight about it. But I did take, when I did first go to college, right out of high school, I went to a community college. I took life drawing and 2D dimensional design. 2D dimensional design was an okay class. It taught you about composition and things like that. Nothing too detailed of works. It was mostly abstract shapes and things like that to create interesting compositions, which taught me quite a bit. Life drawing, on the other hand, I always recommend, if someone's going to take a college course, life drawing is definitely a course to take. It's a very interesting course. That's one of the courses that I saw a pretty big improvement within my drawing overall. Even though it didn't apply to landscapes at all, it really helped to loosen up my drawing style. And that's what made a big difference. So it used to take me quite a bit of time to even get a sketch going, but now I can kind of just dive into it and get going, which, so I know some people take longer than others to get something rolling, but sometimes time can be important. So being able to get something developed relatively quickly can help. So that's why I also made a video about thumbnailing. It's just to help you get your ideas out there quicker and to save them for like a later time. All these different things help to develop your drawing style, essentially. Alright, so it looks kind of weird with this really dark tree trunk against this really light ground, though, doesn't it? It's going to stand out for a little while. I'm going to fix that later on. So I got this tree relatively to my liking. I think I'm going to have to... I need a smaller eraser. Adding in a highlight of some sort will help a lot. Sometimes just adding a highlight on something just really makes it that much better. I need a pencil sharpener. Of course, I don't have a little dish that I need for these, so I'm gonna get eraser shavings or graphite shavings all over my desk here. It's all good though. All right, now I got a nice sharp tip. So what I want to do is just kind of draw a very, very sharp line up this side of the tree. Same with over here. That way you have that nice slight highlight. There we go. Something like that. Alright, let's not get too entangled within that. So let's try and get some progress done on these trees. So in this bundle, I'm probably going to do this one first. But before I do that, let me try and find... Oh, over here. I'll show you a trick. So I've gotten some questions as to why I do this. So you take a scrap piece of printer paper and you cover up what you've done. That way the underside of your hand does not destroy what you've done. Because sometimes, like you see my pinky right here, I got graphite all over it. So putting that on your drawing would be kind of bad. So just doing this helps to preserve what you've already done. Now just be careful, you don't want to smear the paper all over the place because it'll have the same effect, but not as much as your hand going all over the place. So just an idea for trying to keep your drawings from getting completely ruined. I've done it so many times. Oh man. But you know what they say, stuff happens and life goes on. I know there's another way of saying it, but I'll try and keep this channel PG for now. Alright, so I'm doing the same thing again for this tree. You can kind of vary the way you go about it from tree to create some variation. But relatively speaking, a lot of these trees are going to have the same details. I think this tree is going to be a bit more of a cone sort of shape. Not as extreme as a triangular cone, but more like a long dome. Kind of like the cone heads. If you've ever seen that movie. I know it's a little bit outdated, but I know some of you, probably a lot of you have seen that. It's a pretty popular movie. Pretty funny too. Alright. So we got a cone head tree going on here. Just coined it. Alright, we got some extreme branches going up here. You can kind of see how having a long pencil tip like this, and if you press hard on one end, but not too hard, and keep the other end just slightly on the page, it creates a lot of varying detail, as you could probably see, which is really what sells the details of the tree. Oh, this tree is going lopsided on me here. Let's carry up some of these. Some trees turn out better than others. You can have some oddballs in the bunch every once in a while. It creates some interest. Everyone will be like, huh? Why is that tree all lopsided? It just felt like it. You can say it's all part of the plan. Towards the outer parts of these trees, I like to create some sharper lines. It kind of looks like the individual leaves kind of hanging loose. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. Something like that. But you don't want to get too tied into the details of the tree. But then again, you can do whichever you prefer. I'm just trying to be conscious of the time. I know a lot of you really enjoy the longer videos, so I'm not too worried about it. Alright, so we got tree trunk going up. That tree's not too bad. Draw some branches here and there. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Making quick work of these trees. Alright, so let's start at the bottom of this one. So this tree is a bit further in the background than the tree I'm drawing right now, so that's why I did it first. That way I don't have to worry about it erasing anything or anything like that. Every once in a while, rotating the pencil helps a lot. Just keep on working it. So this tree is going to be a bit different of a shape than the other one. The skeleton work of the tree, if you will. You know, just the bare bones branches and things like that will really help to tell what the tree is going to look like when it's full of leaves. So that helps a lot. I think there's two things that took me a long time to understand and draw. One of them is clouds, and the other is trees. And now that I've spent, oh great, here we go. I gotta fix that thing. I'm not sure if you can hear that pump in the background, but that thing goes like crazy. Now, it takes a long time to do its thing. Okay, now that that noise is over. I'm not sure how well that microphone picked up that noise, but... back to what I was saying. Trees and clouds, I used to have a lot of trouble with drawing. So, man, I can't tell you how much trouble I had drawing clouds. It just took me forever to understand how to do that. And it wasn't until I just looked up on Google, looked up different cloud pictures, downloaded them, converted them to black and white images, and kind of softened the images a little bit. That way the edges wouldn't be so harsh. Printed it out, set it next to my sketchbook, and just tried a couple times just to understand what was going on. That I finally started to understand what was happening. And to tell you the truth, trees are very similar to drawing clouds. Actually, a lot of landscape elements, when drawing them, are very, very similar to drawing other things. So even though the texture of a tree is much different than the texture of the cloud, it still applies. Yeah, it's going to be the same volume and shading. It's just going to be a different texture and design. Now these trees are getting pretty close together, so I'm having a bit of issues trying to get one to stand out over the other. But have no fear, I will figure it out. I might have to erase that part of the tree just to kind of make it stand out a little bit better. But up here, I have a lot of freedom to make it really stand out. The pencil's getting a little bit dull again. That's the thing with B pencils, is that they lose their tip really quickly. The H pencils will preserve it much longer. Just trying to make some quick work of this. So after a while, you practice the trees. You'll get quicker and quicker at it. It doesn't take much time at all once you have a method down. And drawing smaller trees like this takes no time. Alright, so I'm going to draw in this tree a little bit. So we're getting pretty close to finishing up these background trees, which, looking at the time, took me 23 minutes, which isn't too bad. Most drawings in total, like a finished drawing, 9 by 12 in size, or a bit smaller, will take me usually around 3 or 4 hours to complete. It all depends on how much detail I want to add in. But sometimes I get really carried away with the textures and things like that. And I know I probably mentioned this before, and I mentioned it quite a bit. The master painters that create masterpieces, like I can't even think of the artist right now. I'm kind of out of that whole scene. But to create a masterpiece of a painting, you need 2 master artists. One to paint it, and one to tell them when to stop. Because you can get carried away. So you have to have that balance between understanding when enough is enough, essentially. But I mean, if you're having fun, go for it. You know, just absolutely go for it and go to town. Have a blast. As long as you're enjoying it. Doesn't matter if you're the greatest of artists or not. I mean, I'm no perfect artist, not even by a long shot. But I enjoy it, so I mean, that's what keeps me going. As long as you enjoy what you do, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks, or I mean, it still matters what you think, but I mean, as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters, really. So I mean, I do this because I enjoy it, and it just so happens that I one day picked up a camera and was curious to see what other people would think. So I'm glad I made that choice. But it's funny how the choices really sculpt what becomes of what you do later in life. So I don't know where this drawing channel will take me, but I'm along for the ride. We'll just have to see where it goes. Alright, so I'm working on trying to make this tree stand out. I think it's working. I can clearly see a fine distinction between this one and the others. Alright, let's zoom out here. I know we're getting a little bit close in. And look how that looks. I'm happy with that. That's pretty cool. See, that's the thing. A lot of people, well, I think it's a lot of people. I hope it, everyone, everyone's a little different when they comment on my videos. But a lot of people will come to me and say that you're a really, really good artist. And I know I have a lot of room for improvement. I mean, there's not really a whole debating that. So it's going to take me time in order to really get better. But at the same time, I really would never want to be an expert artist. An artist that can just look at a photo and just replicate it 100% down to the finest line. If I ever, I mean, okay, that would be kind of cool if I could do that. But at the same time, if I ever got to that point, drawing just wouldn't be fun anymore. And let me explain what I mean. Because at the moment, I would call my drawing skills relatively average. Maybe slightly above. I mean, I can do some things, but if you ask me to draw a portrait, no, it's not happening. I can't even attempt that. So I mean, there's some things I can draw well and some things I can't draw well. So I mean, I would call myself relatively average. But at the same point in time, when I attempt something like this, with not a whole lot of insight as to what's going to happen, when it turns out well, or I find something and it surprises me, that is what I like to get out of my work, is when it gives you a surprise, when you don't expect something to happen and that's what happens. So that surprise factor is what really gives me my interest with drawing landscapes. It's just when you accomplish something and you say, wow, you did that. That's what I really like about drawing. And to become an expert artist and to constantly know the outcome every time, it'd be taking the fun out of it for me. It's kind of like rolling a dice and knowing you're going to get 6 and 6 every time. You're going to roll a 12. It's like, well, I already know what's going to happen, so what's the point of even trying, So I'm just going to enjoy my, I guess, I don't even know what to even call them. I mean, average drawing skills. Just going to enjoy them. Just that I can keep the surprise going and keep it new, keep it original. Just keep it fun. That's what it is. Just keep it fun. So, I mean, that's just the biggest thing. But I am getting carried away in this drawing, which is not a bad thing. It's what I do. I need that other artist to tell me when to stop. But it's all about having fun, so. Alright, so I've rambled quite a bit, and it's almost 30 minutes in, so. I've gotten quite a bit done, though, in this drawing. So, I mean, it's turning out really well. I enjoy this one quite a bit. I'm really pleased with how this is turning out so far. So, hopefully, it'll continue along its good streak and produce some good results. So, I'll, Alright, so I want to thank you all very much for watching. I couldn't think of what I was going to say there. But, yeah, so it's always good to have you watching every week with my videos. It's always great to have your comments. It's great feedback. Great interaction, great conversation. It's always fun. So I really enjoy and appreciate everyone who's watching and everyone who ever watched one of my videos. It's always great. But again, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and leave a comment or do whatever and let me know what you think. And I will be sure to continue this series, and stay tuned for next episode, and I will see you later. Take care, everyone.